Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of What's Happening. I'm George Binns, and we have as a return engagement candidate for mayor, Marshal Sternman. Welcome, Marshal.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, this is sort of an impromptu discussion, and it started off, I guess, with your concerns about getting kind of specific about what would you do if you were the mayor?
Well, thank you. And I do appreciate the opportunity you've given me. Well, to start off with, my job is really to take care of those people working in the city and those residents of the city and those projects that are either underway or that the people of Beverly and those who manage it have decided make good sense for Beverly. And as I think about it, because of where we are in the total economy, this is almost certainly a once in a lifetime, once every 35 to 50 years, we have a situation where one can borrow money at the lowest rates they're going to see for many years, and also can pay it off in future dollars that are worth far less than when we initially borrowed them. And that's basically using tax-exempt bonds called municipal bonds. There are other names for them that I believe we could get for the city to take care of those operating needs that I think and or others think make a lot of sense for the city. So having said that, assuming that I'm correct, and by the way, getting something really done will take the full 3 years. I look at the first year as one in which we'll institute certain things that basically is raising the money to do to complete those objectives of myself, city councils, aldermen, those projects that are underway now. And the second year will be one of implementation. If we get to do what I want to try to do, you'll see a lot of very professional people working here. Hopefully most of them, or many of them, will be residents to get this plan underway. And in my third year, I think we'll see the results. We'll begin to see results early, but the main results are out there 3 years from now. But in order to get them done, we really have to institute them in the next year, because I think this once in a lifetime opportunity won't stay with us forever.
I guess what you're saying is that right now, the way the economy is going, with the country so deep in debt and the Federal Reserve pushing down or constraining the interest rates, this is going to be, as you say, the once in a lifetime opportunity to borrow big quantities of money at a very low interest rate that the city can afford to pay off year after year after year. And then you're counting on the fact that the Fed is going to start to monetize, what's the measure was monetize the debt, which means they're going to allow inflation to accelerate to a much higher level than we're at right now, with the anticipation that it's going to devalue the dollar. And we will end up paying off these bonds that you want to borrow with essentially dollars that are worth less than they are right now. So you're looking at a double bargain. Low interest rates that we can afford to pay for large quantities of money, and a very accommodating way to pay it off with cheap dollars.
That's
Am I
correct.
reading you right?
You're absolutely correct.
Okay,
And
so
then-
now we get to the question of, okay, you got all this money you just borrowed. What are you going to do with it? What specific projects do you think we ought to take on?
Okay. All right. This conversation, I'm going to limit the conversation. In other words, there's not enough time to go through everything, but I'm going to be very specific in a general way. Okay. I think that the present mayor has instituted some great projects, and somewhat because of COVID, and somewhat because we didn't really have the money as a city to invest and push them forward, they're kind of in limbo. Not the fault of past administrations, but that was probably very good money management. Again, you agree with me that now is there's a different way we can think about money management. Well, it's not only the money management that we can get it and pay it back with cheaper dollars, but I think the things that we can do with them now, the investments we can make, are going to add greatly to the income that the city of Beverly will get, actually from taxes of people who are doing very well. I don't mean to say that it's going to all come back from that. I think that some of the projects that I have in mind, and I'll be very specific, okay, will create income for the city and will take away some expense that will even make it more attractive for us. But the main result is, what is it going to do for the citizen or citizens of Beverly? And I have specific programs that this money can be used for to finance those. It'll make a tremendous difference in the lives of a lot of people here in Beverly. And so I want to get into some of that. Now, one of the projects, and I'm not naming them in order of importance. I wish I had the mind that can do that, but I don't. But one of the projects, and really it's part of it is a result of something that you mentioned in the last show, when I talked about the ownership of property that the city can do as a developer, rather than letting someone else come in and develop it. And I say that because the development will be on, for the most part, land that the city already owns. And under the what we are used to, and what more cities are used to, is that a developer comes in, makes a deal with the city, acquires city property, and then on it builds something that's either some kind of a building structure that's paid out by the inhabitants over a period of time, generally 20 years. And at the end of 20 years, the people have a good place to live. They're paying for it as you would, anything normal you'd have. But the ownership reverts to the developer. The city can be the developer, so that if the ownership were to come back to the city, that would be one thing. But if you leave the ownership in the hands of the resident that's there, you're building up their equity. And you called my attention to something called Singapore condos. And I took a look at it, and I talked to some experts. An amazing development in Singapore. I'll call it the state of Singapore, or the city, or the region, okay, many years ago, and I think it's probably 14 to 15 years, decided to build condominiums for the residents. And so under a condominium, obviously, the ownership is held by the person that lives there. So let's take I won't say a typical case, but we can go through a series of cases. So that, let's say we have, and I plan to have at least 6 developments. I won't go through with them now. And I've got land that I would hope we could do them on to create very needed housing for the city of Beverly. And this, some of this will be designated as senior living. Some of it will be more on a charitable point of view for under welfare. The rest of it will be for regular citizens that are looking for, and particularly at this time where housing is so expensive, but something that they can afford, that's quite nice, with spectacular views, because we're so lucky to be in a city like Beverly, where once you get up to a certain height, and can look out towards Baker's Island or look out towards the harbor, you've got marvelous sights, and all these developments, for the most part, are an easy walk to public transportation, and or easily taken care of, let's say for the elderly, and for those people that don't have their own means of transportation, by the way with what we're doing today with the local busing systems and taking seniors around. So those, I'll call it Singapore condos, would be a terrific addition to the city. And we can easily do that, but before we couldn't do that for several reasons, one of which we'd have to commit too much initial capital to. This way, the way we can borrow with muni bonds, that isn't the case. The second thing that has recently come up to my attention is something called the Orbis tax, and it's I think this is going to be of great benefit to those who are less advantaged in the city. And I am fortunate enough to be a close friend and actually a business partner in some instances with the person who put this together, who lives in the Massachusetts area. And this, some of you don't know, but many know about payday lenders. And it's just many people get into trouble. They've gone through their money for the month. They expect a paycheck, or they expect a check from the government the next month, but it's before that period of time. And a payday lender, many of you know, charges exorbitant interest, but the person needs it because they need to buy food, they need to pay for transportation. So this is a brand new concept, but it's in play. And we can get it for the entire city. It's not a problem. It won't cost the city any money, and it won't cost those people who take advantage of it any money at all. And when someone really looks at it, they'll see, and it's been proven, that if you take care of those people that need it, the contribution to the economy is so much more. They can go to work, they use services, and I know, because I've already talked to the people that head this organization, that we can get this for the city of Beverly. Now, if somebody else is mayor or wants to do it, they certainly can do it. I'm just bringing it to the attention of everybody. And I think this will be a great help to many people here. It was an old saying, this will date me a little bit, called for the good and welfare. And what that meant is, what kind of activity, what can you implement? What can you put to work that's for the good and welfare of people? A lot of that has to do with programs that have already in place. And those programs, if we don't use the muni bonds, really many of them won't get done, but most of them will not get done in the immediate period of time as we look at it. Let's say certainly within, if I'm elected mayor, the first year, but probably the second and third year. And we discussed one before. I always get the name wrong, and that's the Briscoe School now, my old high school. So that's just sitting there. There's no need of that. There's no need of a lot of these projects that were well thought out and are sitting there because there's not the capital. The individuals can't get the capital, or the projects themselves can't be funded. We can do that. We also know, and I've mentioned this before, and you can just, you can go out of, where you are at Beverly High School and go across the street into some of the Beverly housing. I'm not putting fault on anybody because there were no funds really to do what's necessary to bring those into a period that someone would actually live and enjoy them. And I go in them a lot. And the upkeep hasn't been able to be taken care of because we haven't, as a city, haven't had the revenue or haven't had the extra funds to take care of it. So there's a lot of that around the city. Now, having said that, I think there were several things that I could go on and on, but I'll mention them. What's very important to most people, obviously, is, the school system. And
But before you get off on the school system, let's retrace the comments. So really what you're suggesting is the city borrow money and go into the business of building apartments, condos, and renting them or selling them to the citizens at sometimes a subsidized rate to make sure that everybody can get into these facilities. And the goal is that the people that are living there eventually put enough money into the system that they own them as a condo. So it's almost like these stores where you rent to buy or rent to own furniture. You're essentially saying you are going to have a rent to own apartment or condo. Am I reading you right?
Yeah, but you make it sound like this is a small part of what I've got.
Well,
I mean a big part. Yeah, this is a major piece. This is the beginning of the resurrection of a city that's sitting there with a lot that they can accomplish. It just isn't, a few condos. What I'm talking about is changing, the face of a lot of Beverly when you begin to change the areas around them, when you rebuild that space, Now, that's only the beginning of what can be done if we have money to do it. I haven't even gotten into some of the other things that will really make it much easier for the people to get around Beverly, for additional building, for the creation of a bigger recreational area, for the expansion of some of the things that we're doing now that are just laying fallow. That's just a small part of it. And the ability to do these things come about because of the need to have money to get them done. Now, having said that, let's talk about the equipment. We can, with this money, we don't have to borrow a fire engine from Boston. It kills me to see it, We don't have to have facilities that are owned by the city not in good enough condition so that there's proper heating for the people that have to stay. Whether we're talking about go into some of the firehouses if you want, where our people who are key to the city. I think one of the most important groups of people in the city are our employees. We have to take care of them, the firemen, the policemen, those people who have other jobs. The city down here where I live, off of Rantoul Street and up the street, is clogged. You can't get through them with a fire truck some days. And I've talked to the owners of some of that property. They'd be far better off. We could relocate them, put them closer to 128. They themselves would have better businesses, and we can change the area that we're in. The money, if used properly, is a solution for a lot of the needs of the people. And that's who we're here to support.
Okay. So you also want to get into payday lending.
Well, the payday lending, look, if we can take care of, let's say 2 or 3% of our population, okay, that why wouldn't I do it? Why wouldn't anybody do it? You'd incorporate it immediately. This is something you're going to see happen around the country. We're going to be the first people to do it. Why wait for 3 or 4 or 5 years?
Okay.
And these are the people quite important in the city. Some of them won't be able to don't show up for work. They can't, because those few extra dollars have to be used for something else. So I think that's very important. Just supporting the institutions here in Beverly. There's so much we can do. We've got a gem in Beverly Hospital, but if you go up there and see what they've had to do with some of the property around there, we can take care of those things and make it easier for our citizens, for those people who are taken care of by those institutions, okay, to have easier access, to have the right equipment that they can't get now. They just can't afford it. So it's more than that. You know, it's interesting what's happened in this pandemic. If you look around, the houses have never looked better. And it's great. It's a tribute to the people because a lot of them had to stay home. They had to concentrate on what they were living there. It's gorgeous as you go around the city. Now, having said that, okay, now we'll take a look at the roads and the sidewalks. Now, I'm not the one to say this road needs help or this area needs cleaning. That's what the aldermen are there for. You know, they'll be coming forth and to help their neighborhoods, to help the residents that they're responsible for. They'll have additional money. We'll create, I don't know what you want to call it, but in a fair way, they'll debate it out and they'll have additional money to correct things that they know in their wards should be taken care of. I mean, it's a win-win for everybody. And when you and the mayor, I believe, because we're faced now with it's not a problem, it's a little bit of a problem that'll be taken care of with the Bass River. Now, I think it was a wonderful idea to try to clean that up. You clean that up and it opens up some areas for the city, particularly in the recreation side of things that are great at a cost that's really will be taken care of in the first 3 or 4 years by the additional value it adds for people. So anyway, it's just that for an opportunity for this, once in a lifetime opportunity for us not to take advantage of it would be tough. Now, having said that, I mean, I don't know what my chances are to be mayor, but if our current mayor continues, if Esther is elected, I pledge, if they'll let me, to help them. I volunteer to help put some of these things, into place. It's for the good and welfare, and that's what we should be thinking about.
Well, we've had a half hour of fun, and it's
Yeah, it's just, yeah. I don't know. It's like me. God, I wish I had better notes, but
well, I
I'm
think
all over the place.
this is part of what the story is all about. Is you've got some ideas, you're trying to bring them out. They're radical compared to what we're doing now, and I think something that people have got to think about is that how much of the infrastructure that we have is being allowed to deteriorate because we don't have the money to fix it. And I just looking at my neighborhood there today, they're paving the other half of Odell Avenue.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That road has been in bad shape for the 50 years I've lived here. And
Yeah.
they're just getting around to getting it done. And it's strictly a money problem. So I think what you're suggesting is taking a much more aggressive approach to borrowing at a very low interest rate and paying it off later.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it, right?
Well, and what it'll accomplish, and what it can do for the people who are here.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me thank you. And I think what you're doing for the city is fabulous. And I don't say that to butter you up. I know how serious you
I
are.
can use a little buttering up. Feels good.
Well, particularly if, I hope you're hip and everything else. is
Anyway,
good.
so like I said, we've had our half hour of fun. And ladies and
Thank you.
gentlemen, thanks again for joining us. And we're going to continue these shows with discussions with the candidates, trying to give you a better idea of where you're going to cast your vote when the time comes. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you next time.